They were America's version of royalty. Handsome, glamorous, powerful. The Kennedys had it all. A fortune built on business and politics. Mansions by the sea. Cameras flashing wherever they went. But behind the perfect smiles was something darker. Assassinations, plane crashes, scandals, and untimely deaths that haunted generation after generation. They called it the Kennedy curse. But was it really fate? Or just the price of power? The story begins with Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., the patriarch. He wasn't born into unimaginable wealth, but he built it through grit, strategy, and perhaps a few shadows. Joseph made money in banking, Hollywood, real estate, and, as rumors suggest, Prohibition-era liquor deals. By the 1930s, he was one of America's richest men. But Joseph wasn't satisfied with money. He wanted something greater, a dynasty. He raised his 9 children not as ordinary kids, but as soldiers for a mission, to conquer American politics. Dinner conversations weren't just about family. They were about campaigns, influence, and power. To Joseph, the Kennedys weren't a family. They were America's next royal household. But every dynasty has a price. The first cracks appeared during World War II. Joseph Kennedy Jr., the oldest son, was destined to become president. Brave, confident, and admired, he embodied his father's dream. But in 1944, tragedy struck. On a dangerous mission over Europe, his plane exploded mid-air. He was only 29. Joseph Sr. was devastated. His heir, the centerpiece of the Kennedy plan, was gone. The family's focus shifted to the second son, John F. Kennedy. But tragedy wasn't finished. In 1948, Kathleen "Kick" Kennedy, the family's rebellious daughter, died in a plane crash in France at age 28. She had defied her father by marrying into British aristocracy, and now her life ended far too soon. 2 children, gone before their time. The whispers of a curse had begun. John Fitzgerald Kennedy was not just another politician. He was the man who turned American politics into a storybook. When he won the presidency in 1960 at just 43 years old, the Kennedys became America's royal family. The White House became Camelot, a glittering kingdom where Jackie was the queen and JFK the young king. Jackie Kennedy brought fashion, culture, and elegance. John brought charisma, speeches of hope, and the promise of a brighter America. But behind the glamour were shadows. JFK battled severe health problems, relied on painkillers, and faced enemies both in Washington and abroad. The Cold War, Cuba, Vietnam. His presidency was a constant storm. On November 22, 1963, the dream ended in Dallas. Riding in an open car with Jackie, JFK was struck down by an assassin's bullet. The world stopped. Television cameras replayed the horror. Jackie's blood-stained pink suit became one of the most haunting images in American history. For many, this was no longer politics. This was tragedy on the level of Shakespeare. The handsome young president, cut down at the height of his power. The Kennedy curse was no longer rumor. It was real, and it had just claimed America's prince. The nation turned to Robert "Bobby" Kennedy. He was brave, intelligent, and carried his brother's charisma. To many, he was America's second chance. But fate had other plans. In 1968, during his campaign for the presidency, Bobby was assassinated in Los Angeles, just 5 years after his brother's death. 2 brothers, 2 assassinations, 2 dreams destroyed. America mourned again. And for the Kennedys, the curse deepened. The youngest brother, Edward Ted Kennedy, survived where his brothers had not, but he could never escape scandal. In 1969, Ted drove off a bridge on Chappaquiddick Island. His passenger, Mary Jo Kopechne, drowned. Ted escaped, but his failure to call for help ruined his reputation forever. Though he served decades in the Senate, the shadow of Chappaquiddick destroyed his chance at the presidency. Some called it recklessness. Others called it another chapter of the Kennedy curse. The tragedies didn't stop with the first generation. In 1984, David Kennedy, son of Robert, died of a drug overdose. He was only 28. In 1997, Michael Kennedy, another of Robert's sons, died in a skiing accident. In 1999, the nation mourned again when John F. Kennedy Jr., handsome, charismatic, and called America's Prince, died in a plane crash with his wife Carolyn and her sister Lauren. The curse had claimed another heir. It seemed every time a Kennedy became a symbol of hope, tragedy struck. But the Kennedy curse wasn't just about deaths. The family was constantly haunted by scandal. Affairs, addictions, political failures, whispers of organized crime connections, rumors of cover-ups. The press followed every move, magnifying every mistake. In some ways, the Kennedys weren't just cursed by fate, they were cursed by fame. Yet, despite it all, some Kennedys survived and thrived. Caroline Kennedy, for example, became a respected diplomat. Others carried on in politics, law, and philanthropy. But the shadow of the curse always loomed. The Kennedys had everything: wealth, power, beauty, and fame. But again and again, their story ended in heartbreak. America's royal family, and America's most cursed family. This is the story of the Kennedy curse. If you found this story fascinating, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Luxury Freaks. Here, we uncover the untold stories of wealth, power, and downfall. Because in the world of luxury, the higher they rise, the harder they fall.